This is for Azerbaijan. Goes around the outside, it's in his team.
Qualified.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Barely Qualified, a Formula One podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Channing Apodaca. That's Brandon Wood.
Yo.
We're playing a little bit of catch-up. This is the post-Italian Grand Prix and Azerbaijan Grand Prix because we missed last week. Just got busy with life. Couldn't do an episode. So we're doing a quick twofer. Don't have a whole lot of time, so we got to jump right into it. Covering the Italian Grand Prix. It's been 2 weeks. Do you even have any thoughts anymore?
I mean, I have some thoughts. Some of which have kind of changed now that we've experienced the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. But I would say my main takeaways from Monza was, what has McLaren screwed this up? Their opportunity for Lando to win World Drivers' Championship by not enforcing some sort of team rules as far as prioritizing Lando over Oscar, because we saw a first lap move by Oscar to take the lead away from Lando, which opened the door for Charles to come through and to pass him, and then that ended up being the detriment of both of them towards the end of the race. So
yeah, that was it's a shitty thing because it's yes, we all know that Lando has that first lap problem. Off the line, he's got an issue. He is not aggressive enough. He's too passive going into the first corners and then wants to play the long game, to try and get ahead in the race. But shit goes wrong. Your best opportunity to win the race is to get the whole shot and just go from there in clean air, and he can't seem to do it. But it's also it sucks because Oscar's having this great second half of the season and he wants to be competitive. So nobody wants to have to be in a team order situation, but that is absolutely necessary in these circumstances because every single point is so valuable and is so crucial to what is probably going to be Lando Norris's single chance at a world championship for all points involved. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Who's to say if he's ever going to be in this position again? And they can't seem to just make the right decision that you have to do. It's not anything new. Every team has done it before. Every team is going to end up doing it again in the future and just make the decision to go, all right, we do have a priority driver here for the rest of the season. And they did it after Monza, heading into this weekend for Azerbaijan. They did say that, yes, we're going to prioritize Lando. Obviously, didn't work out because of what happened in quali we'll get to. But it's almost too little too late,
Yeah, I mean, they wanted to let it naturally play out. They didn't want to try to enforce too much control so as to, there's a lot of arguments to be made that could end up hurting you too as well. You try to control too much going in the first lap, you maybe expose yourself a little bit to getting overtaken or something like that. But at the same time, by them not actually enforcing anything, allowing them to race, they allowed the same thing
themselves even more
in the same. So it's could they have enforced some controls a little bit more in the race? Probably. Would it have actually worked? We don't really know. But you can't deny that they have an opportunity right there. I mean, after this. Today, after Azerbaijan, they have managed to take control of the Constructors' Championship, which is, I think, the team's maybe number one priority because that was the most within reach. But now that they've kind of got that a little more under wraps, I think they have the leeway to kind of let them enforce a little more controls to try to secure the Drivers' Championship.
To me, it's so silly, for them to be sitting there waiting and being okay, we're going to prioritize getting control of the Constructors' Championship before we actually put priority into a single driver, because the writing's been on the wall that they're going to win the Constructors' Championship. They've been hot on Red Bull's ass for the past 6 races. That gap has gotten shorter, and shorter, and the distance between those 2 cars and those 4 drivers has been getting wider and wider every single race, even down to this weekend. One driver gets put in the wall, one finishes 6th or 5th, wherever Max finished. You know what I mean? So that gap between McLaren and Red Bull has been getting longer. It was obvious that it was going to happen, and I think that they should have put more focus into winning both than just winning one. And I get it from a team perspective. Yes, that's where the money's at. But from a sporting perspective, nobody gives a shit truly who wins the Constructors' Championship. It's cool.
I mean, it means a lot for the team. You know,
it means everything for the team, but everybody remembers who won the championship that year, and it's never the constructor, it's the driver. So it's for them to be hanging Lando out to dry and waiting until the last second to do this, and like there's still time.
Sure.
There is still plenty of time to sew up a driver's championship, and maybe he will. You know, the Red Bull looks like it's pretty far behind. Yeah. And if they can get everything going right from here on out, which the second the door opened for them to really take the driver's championship for Lando is when shit has just been falling off the rails. Lando, again, loses out to his teammate on lap 1 in Monza. Then they lose out as a team to Charles Leclerc's brilliant extended stint on those hard tires, and Lando's just asked the fuck out. Coming into Azerbaijan, he gets caught out on track evolution and a safety car in Q1, doesn't even make it into Q2, has to do a giant recovery drive. So it's like everywhere where something can go wrong will go wrong. And I think there's even one more. I forget which other race where they could have like gained a bunch of points for him and just didn't.
Yeah, I mean, you had the team order situation earlier where he had to give up the place.
Hungary,
you know what I mean? So there's points
7
where
points
they've
there.
left points on the table for him, and when it comes down to it at the end, maybe they will have wished they had those points back. But, I would say I feel a little bit better about their chances, at least, and especially like Lando's chances of like actually taking the title after this weekend. Checo had a bad finish, although he was in a really good position to score a bunch of points. Max struggled again in Azerbaijan, and I think McLaren took away as many points as they probably could after Lando's qualifying.
Given the circumstances, like I don't think this could have been any better. George Russell's good drive, like not brilliant by any standard, but like he had a solid drive, kind of, and you know what, Carlos Sainz too, because like he was right up there. Those guys all prohibited, like put a little bit of a stopgap from an even better drive from Lando, but given the circumstance, like it was about as good as things could get,
Yeah, and I think for McLaren, a weekend like this, and then also this by Azerbaijan, and then also Singapore coming up, like these are tracks that are going to be probably pretty good for Ferrari. So for them to come out, with a solid points lead and edge on them after these, they'll be in a really good position going into the final stretches. I think this is a really important time for them to get as many points, because it doesn't seem like Red Bull's really the one they have to worry about right now. I mean, this was a good opportunity for Checo to be back in the mix and getting some points for the team, but
he looked good
yeah,
for the majority of the race, and it looked like he actually might secure the win at certain points if it wasn't for Oscar's absolutely brilliant defensive driving at literally every overtaking opportunity until that shunt with Carlos.
Yeah, I'm just looking at my notes from Monza. Let's see.
It's been, what, 2 weeks? 3 weeks since Monza?
Yeah, I think the only other major thing was we saw K-Mag get his penalty points. So he got a race ban, so we got to see Oliver Behrman fill in for him this weekend in Azerbaijan. Who, good on Ollie, getting points again. So now this is his first 2 races for 2 different teams. He's managed to score points.
Yeah.
Looking good for next year. I'm excited.
He's going to be solid. He looks great. And also, not only Ollie Behrman, but Franco Colapinto coming in and taking the place of Logan Sargent. I don't remember if we talked about it on the last pod that we did.
It hadn't even, I don't know.
We did the announcement. I think we did the farewell to Logan, but we haven't talked about Colapinto. He looks great. He
Amazing.
He looked decent in Monza, where you would think that I don't remember where he finished, but where the Williams actually shines. I think he had a little bit of difficulty because Alex had a pretty solid race there.
Yeah, I mean, he averaged, I think it was like 0.2 of a second slower than Alex, which is really good. If you look at that comparison, like that's about average between all the teams of like the one driver will be about 0.2 ahead of the other one. So for him to be right in there was really good. And obviously like Monza, it's known as one of the easier tracks on the circuit. It's not as many corners, just a bunch of straights. It's one that Franco has been to before, so I figured like that would be a good one for him to come in, and he had a good performance. But here in Azerbaijan,
First time here,
backs it up. He and Alex both get through to Q3.
Yep.
Alex had a little bit. Actually, I think he qualified ahead of Alex, did he not? Or
I
maybe
think he
just the
did. I'll look it up right now.
But yeah, many times he was,
Yeah, he qualified 9th. Alex qualified 10th.
Yeah, amazing for
And then for the majority of the race, he was ahead of Alex.
his head. I mean, they were on opposite strategies, I think. So
Which it paid dividends in the end for Alex because he ends up finishing one place ahead. But a solid weekend for them.
yeah, he did kind of get gifted a little bit by the second, or I should just be specific, but Sergio and Carlos Sainz taking each other out towards the end. That put him into the points, but
it almost makes you think, like, where's Colapinto going to end up next year? He's going to round out the remainder of this year, and then they've already filled that spot with Carlos Sainz, which I do think that's still like a great move. They're going to be one of the stronger pairs on the grid next year, but Colapinto looks so good out of the gate that maybe that might be the better move.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, he's definitely going to be
a homegrown guy,
He's going to be a great fill-in. Yeah, I think he's going to learn a lot next year, just being in the paddock and like watching those two guys and spending time on the simulator, I'm sure. So, he may even have to fill in for somebody at some one point. So I think it'd be good for him,
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so K-Mac gets his race ban for Azerbaijan. But the exciting news is he's back down to 0 points.
Yeah, so
he can just, for the remainder of this season, just be an absolute wrecking ball.
Yeah, he's like, I'm probably not coming back, so I might as well just make a mark while I can.
Yeah, I heard a question. Somebody was like, on another podcast, they were like, what are the odds that they just keep Behrman in that seat for the remainder of the season? There's no way.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't really know what his obligations are with F2 and all that stuff. So like,
who's he drive for? Prema?
Him and Antonelli are teammates. Oh, which we should talk about. I guess going back to Monza, the other rookie debut we had was the Antonelli FP1.
Oh, his 2 laps,
his 2 flying laps.
Yeah, I don't think it was even 2 flying laps. It was one warm up lap, and then his first flying lap, he threw it into the wall.
Yeah, and
which is fucking hilarious.
It's just like, it's so funny. It's like the most 18-year-old thing to do. It's like,
it's so funny too because it's this highly touted prospect. Like, he's
so much hype.
So much. There hasn't been this much hype since. I feel like there's more hype here than when Oscar came in.
More than Max, it feels like,
I don't know about more than Max. I would put it on par with Max or somewhere along the lines of Max. Oscar's debut and Oscar's entry into Formula One had more drama because of the Alpine McLaren shit. But he's about as highly touted, but the talk going around with Kimi Antonelli because the circling situation with Lewis Hamilton, the upgrades that Mercedes brought, yada yada, all that. There's a lot of hype, and then for him in one lap to just into the wall.
And then it was just so funny. It's just seeing the look on Toto and George's face. It's just like,
yeah, George walked away from the camera. Like,
he's like,
yeah,
because I mean, luckily George's weekend wasn't completely ruined. He ended up actually bringing it around. I don't remember where he finished exactly, but it ended up not being a bad weekend for him. So
yeah, so like no real damage to the car. It was a pretty big hit though, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, the car was like completely. I mean, George wasn't able to get out until like halfway through the second practice session. So they spent a bunch of time. Let me see. Yeah, George managed to bring it back to 7th or something, but right behind Max in Italy. But
and where did Lewis finish?
In Italy, he finished in 5th.
Yeah,
5th. Yeah. So
see, like going back to that, Max finishes in 6th in Italy. These are the times, like, so this is why the Lando Norris success train needs to be like pushed by McLaren and by Oscar as well, like the whole team, because of how far back Max is. Yeah. He has been in 6th and 7th and 8th place the last like 3 races.
Yeah, and you don't know how much longer that's going to happen, right?
Exactly.
Like, they could turn it around.
Helmut Marko said after Austin or at Austin, we're bringing an upgrade package that's going to make us more competitive. So that your window right there, I mean, if Max is finishing 6th, that's what, 4 points? Let's say on average for the past 3 races, he's finished 6th. That's 12 points to a possible 78 with fastest laps that Lando Norris could have accrued right there. That's the World Drivers' Championship. That window is sewn up right there because it's 59 points as it stands right now. Had Lando won the last 3, and these are also, this is shaking a finger at Lando himself and saying you got to get your shit together on this start. You need to fucking elbows out, balls to the wall, go into corner the first turn, you know? Stop getting overtaken.
Yeah.
Your teammate, this goes to you as well, you got to help out. You got to play the team game. It sucks. You got to do it.
Yeah, let's see. How much further is Oscar back from...
He's back there. His season's over.
I mean, he's at 222 points. Charles Leclerc is 235, Lando 254, and Max 313. So the gap is pretty big, even just for Lando. So he's going to have to, make up. I think going into Monza, it was like he needed to average 8 points ahead of Max every race, which he managed to do in Italy. Didn't manage to do it here, so in Azerbaijan. So
yeah,
he's got some work to make up.
I think Oscar probably has a good chance at finishing ahead of Leclerc. He might even finish ahead of Lando, but to catch Max, that is the more impossible thing. It is still technically actually doable.
Yeah, it's mathematically possible, but
improbable.
Yeah, the probability is pretty low. So,
but they did announce going into Azerbaijan weekend that they were gonna prioritize Lando.
Yeah,
so that's a good sign.
But then that all went out the windows as soon as Q1 was over. So frustrating.
It's a thing where it's like, dude, is this the end? Which sucks because technically it's not.
I mean, I feel like in a way they're probably somewhat relieved when that happens. I mean, it's like it sucks that Lando's so far back, but it's like, okay, they're separated from each other. We don't have to worry about them. Or having to actually enforce team orders and get mixed up. We can just kind of let them run their own races and make the most of it. But it ended up working out, I think, to Oscar's advantage here in Azerbaijan, having Lando back there because around the pit stops, Lando
he was able to play some defense for Oscar coming out of the pit.
Yeah, so he held up Sergio and kind of gave Oscar a little bit of that gap. So that could have ended up being the whole thing today because we saw it was 25, 30 laps at the end there. It was top 3 were within a second of each other for a while. So it could have gone either way there.
That was the second half of that race was potentially race of the year.
Yeah,
that was
very tense.
I don't know what it is about Baku, dude, but every year it delivers. In one way or another, whether it's like single driver or 2 drivers going head to head and causing drama, whether it's tires exploding on the straightaway twice, or wheel to wheel battle between 4 cars.
Yeah, I mean, so those long straights, tight corners. There's really only like 1, maybe 2 spots on the track that you could pass. So
yeah,
it just
majority
sets
of
up
it's
a lot.
Super tight, and then you have to time your overtake out on that long straightaway. We saw Oscar do it. We need to get to that and talk about what a brilliant move that was from Oscar to overtake Charles Leclerc.
I mean, he's shown that he's been super good at making the most of an opportunity when it approaches, especially in those really important moments, right? Like in Italy, it was the first lap on Lando. Here in Azerbaijan, it was after their first pit.
He also had a great move on Lando and Lewis, I think it was, in Hungary. Yeah, off that first lap.
Yeah.
The kid's he's doing great, and that move today was unbelievable. And then not only the move to overtake, but all the defensive moves on Charles to keep him to the outside and not allow him to do the same thing that he did to Chuck, to have Chuck do to him. He defended brilliantly, and then as soon as Checo got in the mix, that slowed up Leclerc, and then Sainz, and then the rest is history. But You got to hand it to Oscar. It's just, had he driven like this for the first part of the season, we'd be having a different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But he was definitely bested the majority of the season by his teammate.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to give Charles some credit. Like he
had
a great drive. Maybe not as incredible, as flashy as he had in Monza, but I think he definitely should be happy. It sucks that he's qualified on pole 4 times here and he's never been able to win. But it's just how it goes. I think he should be happy with the.
I mean, that's kind of like a Charles Leclerc trope too, is that he hasn't converted a whole lot of poles into victories. You know, and now Lando's kind of like the guy that everybody points their finger at because he loses it on lap 1, and that's mathematically.
Yeah. Whereas like Charles, it's more been like
longer stints,
and that's that's from just the nature or the characteristics of the car. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, their DEG is pretty wild. Yeah. You could see that he was losing it a lot more than Oscar was.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, part of that I think is because he got stuck behind Oscar for so long, and he kept trying and wasn't able to really get it. And then you saw him just kind of fall off at the end. So,
yeah, I think Oscar used a lot of his battery in that overtake because he came from so far back to make that lunge. And barely made it. He said it himself in the cooldown room. He was like, there was a 50-50 chance that I wasn't going to make that, and I was going into the wall.
Yeah.
But I think he drained a lot of his battery because towards the end, when they showed the battery life on both the Ferrari and McLaren, his was done, and Chuck had a little bit left, but it wasn't enough to get the move done.
Yeah, because he just started to fall back too far. And and then there was all the chaos with, Checo trying to pass. I mean, Checo almost got him, and it did not end well. I think it'll probably get chalked up to a racing incident. I don't think
they did. They said it was a racing incident,
and it was tough because you look at the onboard right there in both Sergio's view and Carlos's view. They're both like going pretty much straight. Like I think it's just that the straight actually narrows a little bit there, and then with the glare, I don't think they could really see.
Yeah, it almost looks like the angle that I saw right after it, it almost looks like there's like a ground effect from Checo's car that pulls Carlos into him because Carlos makes a little bit of an abrupt move to the left and just.
Well, I think because they touched tires, so it kind of just
sucked him in. It was like a real irky jerky move to the left, and I think that's why it took Checo by surprise, where he was like, "What the fuck is this? What's going on?" And then Carlos was just like, quick, "What happened there?"
Yeah.
But that was a brilliant sequence. That was great.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing to watch, and it's sad to see it. And like that, it could have been really good finish for Checo because Lord knows he needed that so podium.
Bad.
I think his
and not only like to podium to potentially win because like I think he would have had a decent run up to Oscar had he gotten around them maybe a lap sooner. Maybe P2 might have been his best result, but to podium or potentially win while Max finishes 6th, like that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge for Checo.
Yeah. Should we do some props and flops?
Yeah. We got to go all the way back to Italy and then split these up though. We got to do props and flops for both.
Yeah, so you want to start with Italy?
Yeah, let me bring up that race real quick.
Bring up our notes. Past Italy. I mean, my props obviously have to go to Charles Leclerc.
Yeah,
making the one-stop work. I know for McLaren going into the race, they never really had the one-stop in the cards. Maybe they should have. Maybe they should have tried to make it work. Carlos, good finish in 4th. You got anybody else you want to give props to for that finish besides maybe?
I'm giving my that's who my prop is going to, Franco Colapinto. On debut, he has a good race. We were talking about this. The comparative to him and Logan Sargent is astronomical. Like we all knew Logan was bad, but you don't realize how bad things were until you see somebody else in those shoes. And holy fuck, man.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to kick a man while he's down.
We don't, but this isn't in order to build up Franco Colapinto and say just what a great debut he had. He beat Oscar, or sorry, he didn't beat Oscar. He beat Daniel Ricciardo. He beat Esteban Ocon, Gasly, Bottas, which who cares? Nico Hulkenberg, that's a nice victory. He beats Joe, who cares, and Stroll. whose teammate finished 11th. So like there's some things to be proud of.
Yeah.
In a P12 at Monza on your debut. So props to him. Flop. Excuse me. You know it hurts, but I have to flop Lando Norris.
Oh yeah.
You're starting on pole. You're getting overtaken by your teammate. Which, yes, I agree with Will Buxton. The move should have never been made. But when you put yourself in a position for something to go wrong, something can go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Even if that wrong move is caused by your team and your teammate, you got to be better.
Yeah.
He's done nothing to solidify.
Yeah, I think my flop goes to Nico Hülkenberg. I think he got hit by Ricardo, but then in turn ran into Tsunoda, took Tsunoda out.
That's right. He caused a big
bad finish for him altogether.
Yeah. Okay, props and flops for Azerbaijan.
Props, I think it's going to be a twofer. It's going to go to Franco and Ollie for both getting points in their here. I don't know if Ollie's ever raced here, but yeah.
I don't know if he has either. That's a good one. I will co-sign your Franco Colapinto prop and then also give props. You know what? I'll leave that one alone because I'm going to do a different one. Huge prop to Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful overtake. Great defensive drive. Another victory. Your second victory this season. Great victory. And then I'm going to give it to his teammate too. Another prop to Lando Norris for coming back from P17. He does end up moving up to P15 because 2 pit lane starts, but a P15 to P4, that's a great drive.
That's great. I mean, got gifted a little bit with the 2 places at the end, but hey,
yeah,
that's how it goes.
It's still a great drive.
Yeah.
He gets very unlucky in qualifying with that the safety car. And some people were saying like, oh, he made a mistake in qualifying and that was the issue.
Yeah.
He was actually faster in every sector than his teammate Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen, who hit the wall on that lap.
Mm-hmm.
So the mistake that he made by running wide slightly and then riding the curb would not have cost him entry into Q2. He would have absolutely made it by a marginal amount of time. And then things would have been different. But the safety car is what changed everything. And they actually tried to appeal it, but didn't get anything.
Yeah.
And our flops for Azerbaijan.
I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I was going to say Stroll because he took Yuki out. Nowhere. I mean, anybody that takes out Yuki, I'm going for their head. But I would say, maybe Checo. I don't know. I mean, it's hard
to flop Checo
because it's
when he had such a brilliant race.
Yeah, but I feel like he could have maybe. I don't know. You want him to push, but maybe that pushing too hard. He could have just taken the points in third. You know what I mean? I don't know. I guess he was fighting for third. So I don't know.
Yeah, this is a hard one to even pick because it's so easy to go with like Bottas or Zhou, who are just clocked out anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I would say maybe Stroll gets an extra. It's because of the Aston Martin news with Adrian Newey coming in.
But he had a puncture.
I know, but that was because he ran into Tsunoda.
Oh, is that where I thought that was way later down the line?
No, that was where it came from.
Okay.
So with that new announcement, there's a lot of energy coming into the team. It's like, come on, man, you want to
have a good showing.
Yeah. Alonso, his teammate, finished in like 8th or 9th, so
he finished sixth
with the.
That's a solid drive from Fernando.
Yeah.
So all right, you can flop Stroll. I'm just gonna shoot strays and go. I got to flop Lewis Hamilton. Your teammate finished. Your teammate finished on the podium in P3, and you finished P9.
I mean, he did start from the pit lane because he had to take a new motor.
Oh, that's right. I can't flop him for that. Yeah. That's a great drive.
So, I mean, if anything, maybe I don't know. I mean, it's got to be. I don't know. I mean,
you know what? I got it. I'm flopping Esteban Ocon because he caused the safety car in qualifying that caused Lando to miss out on Q2.
And he was nowhere in
and
the
then
race.
He was absolutely nowhere in the race.
Yeah.
So Esteban Ocon.
He's been getting beat by Pierre pretty regularly now.
Yeah.
So. And if he's, I don't know. I'm not that impressed with him going to Haas next year, but.
Yeah, I think that they could probably do better.
Yeah.
But we have, what is it? 1 week 1 week away from the Singapore Grand Prix. So we got back-to-backs. That's going to be a good one. I've been saying this every week, but this will now actually be even more telling. Just so long as there's not any drama going into Singapore, any uneven qualifying results. If we can get both McLarens, both Ferraris, and at least one Red Bull in the top 5, top 6 of the starting grid, throw in some Mercedes in there, we're going to get some real answers on how the rest of the season might shake out and where the championship is at that moment.
Yeah, I'm excited. I want to see another Ferrari double podium. Even though we didn't get one here, we could have. It was in the works.
It was in the works.
I think Ferrari can make it happen. Charles, looking at you, boy.
Yep. Carlos, I'm looking at you. I want to see Carlos have a good end to this season before he heads to old Williams. Other than that, that is it. This has been the post-Italian and Azerbaijan Grand Prix edition. We will see you guys for Singapore after the race. Peace.
Peace.